trigger happy and I give less than a fuck. Love me or hate me, I'ma show enough, rip shit up. It's Mr. Nothing, nice on a mic stand. Mic in the left and the zest in my right hand. I took a puff, had enough now, hold up. If that was Indo, niggas getting rolled up.
What's up YouTube, it's JackalGoldKick, and I'm here with Acid Rootz, and we're going to be doing a video collaboration reviewing the Club to Death EP by BOTDF, which came out in 2012. I'm a big fan of Blood on the Dance Floor. Their music is really great. I've loved them ever since I found them in 2011. They make great music, so it's going to be cool reviewing one of their albums with Acid Rootz. So yeah, we're going to review their EP Club to Death from 2012 by BOTDF, aka Blood on the Dance Floor. So yeah, let's review this album and let's get into it. Got the list of the songs right here. So the first song on the album is called Club to Death. I'm not really a fan of this song. It's the self-titled track of the album name as well. I'm not really a fan of this song, Club to Death. It's a very messy song and a forgettable song and just not really a memorable BOTDF song. There's things I like about this song, like when there's like a deep sort of voice and then Davi's doing his part with the beat. That's a good part. I like this other part of the song where Davi's talking about like club me or hit me with a club or something like that. I like that part of the song, but for the most part, I'm not really a fan of this song, Club to Death. It has like such a mix of sounds. It doesn't really have, I feel like the song just doesn't have a flow. It doesn't really have consistency of what it wants to go for in terms of the sound of the track, or like, it just feels like it's all over the place. It feels like a messy track. It's forgettable. It's just not a BOTDF song I can remember, and I don't really like the song overall. I just like the overall instrumental, the messiness of sounds, like having dance parts, but then having like screamo parts with Jay and then heavy guitar parts. Like the song just feels very messy in my opinion. It just doesn't really flow well. And it's a very forgettable track. I didn't care for like the screamo parts with Jay. The only parts I liked was the woman that repeats a few words, some parts of the dance type beat, and then like that one part with Davi who talks about the club thing. So it's like, it's a song, it sounds like a rock song mixed with like a club song, EDM. That's kind of the three genres it goes for. And I don't know, besides a few things, I don't really care for this song overall. And yeah, I'm not really a fan of the Club to Death song. So that's what I think of that track. The next song on the album is called Deep Within. Now I do like this song. This is definitely a pretty good track. I like the instrumental on this song. The beat's really good. Davi has some pretty good singing. I also like the switch up in the song where it's like sort of emotional ballad, but then it's also like a party track at the same time. I do like this track. The beat's really good. Davi's parts are really good, especially his party parts when it sounds more like a party track. That's probably my favorite part of the song. He does a really good job on that side of the track. The chorus I'm not a big fan of, honestly. I think Jay doesn't really deliver a good chorus here. I don't know, I'm not a fan of the chorus on Deep Within. It's just forgettable. It's kind of a problem I noticed with this album is I feel like it doesn't have, like, I feel like it feels like an album that isn't completely terrible, but it doesn't have enough to keep it super memorable, if that makes sense. Because I already don't like the first song. And while I like this song Deep Within, you know, I like the production, I like the song overall, I still am not a fan of the chorus. I just didn't really care for Jay's chorus on the song, but I do like the rest of the track. I do like the production. I like Davi's parts, and I do think it's a good song overall. I'm just not really a fan of Jay's chorus, but it just doesn't feel like a BOTDF song I'm gonna like remember like that. Maybe I will, but I do like Deep Within. It is a really good song. I just think the chorus could have been better, but I do like the song Deep Within. So the last song on the album, track 3, is Where's My Wonderland. This is probably the best song on the album and the strongest one. I definitely like this one a lot. Reminds me of like Tim Burton, Coraline, like Nightmare Before Christmas, that kind of aesthetic and feel. That's what the song reminds me of. It has like this gothic kind of like Tim Burton, you know, creepy feel to it. It's got really good production, really nice creepy song, just a nice horror Tim Burton type sounding song. Davi and Jay do really well in the song. I like Jay's part, I like Davi's part, I like the chorus, I like the production, I like the lyrics, I like the singing from both Davi and Jay. I think it's a pretty good song overall, and I definitely do like this track. I like the creepy aesthetic it goes for. The beat with Davi and Jay when they're doing their verses, it kind of sounds like it reminds me of like blood coming down from someone or something. That's what part of that beat reminds me of. And then the beat switch up in the chorus is pretty good. It sounds kind of dubsteppy. It's definitely a good track. I like Where's My Wonderland. Definitely the best song on the album, and I think it has the best. Another reason I think it's the best song on the album is it has more of a consistent sound. The first two songs on this album, they went for like a multitude of sounds. The first one did it. The second one kind of had it. This one feels like the most consistent. Like it has, the way the song sounds is the way it sounds the whole way through. Whereas the first two songs, it was like more experimental with a multitude of sounds, it felt like. So I do like Where's My Wonderland. I definitely think that's the best track on this album. So overall, when it comes to Club to Death EP by BOTDF, what I think of this album overall is I think it's an okay album. I would give it like a 3 out of 5. I think it's a decent album by BOTDF. I think the album has some good songs. I like Deep Within and I like Where's My Wonderland, but my issues with the album, why I give it a 3 out of 5, I'm not a fan of the first song, Club to Death. It just felt like a very messy song and a forgettable BOTDF track. I feel like the chorus on Deep Within could have been better. I also think the album could have had a lot more songs on it. I know it's an EP, but it felt way too short. You know, only having 3 songs, it just felt way too short. It should have had at least a few more songs on there. It was about as brief as Rob Level's Or of a Supervillain EP. So I think that the album could have used a few more songs. Or if the first song was at least as good as the other two, then maybe the lack of songs wouldn't hurt as much. But overall, I think Club to Death EP by BOTDF, I give it a 3 out of 5. It's a decent, okay album by BOTDF. I like track 2, and I like track 3. I like Deep Within, and I like Where's My Wonderland. And maybe I have to hear Deep Within more, but while I like Deep Within, I feel like another issue with the song is that it doesn't feel like it's going to be like super memorable. Like it's a good song, but I feel like it lacks like, I guess, distinctiveness. It kind of has the same issue as track 1. And it's why this album could have used a few more songs or something like that. Like Deep Within is a good song, but it just feels like it's not one of the standout BOTDF songs or one of their more distinctive songs. Like it's a good song, but it feels like it's not a super memorable BOTDF song. It just doesn't really stand out in their catalog. It's not really a distinctive track. And I think that's one of the issues with it, even though it's a good song. Whereas Where's My Wonderland, I think that's the best song on the album because it's good, but it's also distinctive. I can remember that song. It stands out, and it's the best track on this album. And I think it had the most consistency in terms of its flow and the sounds they were going for. So what they could have did is, since they only had 3 songs, I think they could have made the first song a lot better. And then I think they could have did more with the second song to make it more distinctive and stand out more. But other than that, I think the Club to Death EP by BOTDF, I give it a 3 out of 5. It's an okay project, but I've heard better BOTDF albums. I've heard better collections of songs and music from BOTDF. I just think this album, it's one of their projects that just isn't as memorable and like distinctive as their other albums. Like I can remember a lot of songs from All the Rage and Epic and Bad Blood and Evolution, but this is one of those BOTDF albums that I feel like lacks like distinctiveness. I don't know, it isn't as memorable as their other projects. It has 2 good songs on it, but really the only song on it that's really memorable and unique and actually stands out that you'll remember is Where's My Wonderland. And even with track 2, I feel like it could have at least stood out or be more distinctive. My mind may change on that the more I listen to that song. So maybe if that changes, it would be up to a 3.5 instead. But as it stands, 3 out of 5, decent album. Could have used a few more songs, and the second track could have had more distinctiveness, and the first song could have been better. But that's what I think of the album overall. That's all I got to say. Peace.
What to do, folks? This is Acid Rootz. I've got a collaboration review with JackalGoldKick, and it's basically the EP Club to Death. So this project here, you can actually find this attached to the Anthem of the Outcast EP. I mean, normally in some cases, the Anthem of the Outcast has like 9 songs, but the CD edition has these 3 additional songs on here to make it 12. But basically, a little bit of backdrop about the Club to Death EP is it was a bonus kind of extra material type stuff for being on, for I think maybe pre-ordering Blood on the Dance Floor's 2012 album Evolution. It was available on their website at first, and then it wound up being for purchase later. But basically, it's a pretty solid project, I would definitely kind of say. Now, because this was just bonus material, there's no real single attached to it, but it's just interesting because Blood on the Dance Floor put out a lot of music in 2012. They had the Anthem of the Outcast, they had the Club to Death EP. I want to say that there was at least one other EP that came out that year besides those projects, and then you had the big album Evolution. So plenty of stuff really going on. It's good to kind of see that in circulation just because Blood on the Dance Floor was popular and they took advantage. There are some folks that will drop a project, like, you know, especially when these musicians are like 28 or 30 or something, then they'll take like 5 or 6 years off and kind of sabotage their potential in their prime years. But Blood on the Dance Floor didn't do that. They took complete advantage, and they had a lot of good festering music that came out around this time as far as just being able to have some fun stuff. Now, the thing about this project is it just gets right to the point in terms of like the overall litness factor in terms of how outgoing these songs actually are. Like Club to Death is actually kind of a retro kind of club song. It kind of reminds me of the sort of stuff that Tyga, Nicki Minaj, and like even like Novi Novak, that kind of production, similar to how things were in late 2009, 2010, and maybe early 2011, kind of has that, at least in the verses where Davi was going in on that song. But yeah, I did appreciate Club to Death this because it was a great EDM song. I mean, this really, like, EDM was humongously popular in 2012. So there's a number of just like where some of it's electronic, but some of it kind of has like a taste of EDM in there. And even at the beginning of Club to Death, there's like this real interesting kind of guitar backdrop in there. So it's kind of a little bit of rock. It's tinged with rock, has that kind of EDM feel, and then it kind of has like a standard kind of club bop, and at least in this one. This is probably there's only 2 club songs on this project, but I feel like Club to Death is the more entry-level club song in terms of that. I just would have to say it's not quite as turned up as Deep Within is, but it's definitely good. Before Davi starts his verses, there is a nice, real kind of almost like mosh pit kind of stuff for electronic music. I was pretty proud of that, just to kind of say, because this is probably the point where the dance action really kind of happens, where you get real festeringly crazy on the dance floor and stuff. So it does this at the beginning of the song and the end of the song, and I really kind of like that concept as a mosh pit type stuff in an electronic song. It worked extremely well. It's just it makes things kick off even more. I mean, normally EDM type songs are pretty crazy, but this made it even crazier to kind of have that backdrop attached to it, to the point where it had like a mosh kind of section where things are just really, there weren't even vocals. It was just playing this getting crazy and that type stuff. So it's interesting that happened. Deep Within that to me was the most rickety song. It's definitely a pretty riotous kind of song, I would have to say, especially in the verses of that. I definitely felt like, so yeah, Deep Within kind of starts off as just kind of like a real kind of almost very approachable and pop sounding kind of club song, but then it translates into like one of the crunchier kind of EDM type songs where the craziness just really kind of sinks in. This is easily a song that in most situations you can have a good vibe to easily at a bar, just completely going nuts, that type of stuff. It's pretty crazy. I mean, there's not too many songs that have this sheer level of craziness that often. I just feel like it just really has like the understanding of like how to enjoy yourself. I mean, it does keep it within the atmosphere of not getting too crazy, but I still would have to say that I appreciate the fact of how off the Richter that this song was. It's definitely an easy song to bop to and enjoy quite a bit. I mean, Club to Death and Deep Within are a 1-2 punch, where I'd say Club to Death is kind of the entryway one that is not quite as crazy but has good vibes about it and can easily be a good song to take your shirt off to and go nuts. But then Deep Within is probably the craziest song on this whole project, and probably just overall in a lot of records. I mean, David Guetta didn't really have too many songs like this, and unless we're talking someone like Zed, or maybe, I mean, there's just not many EDM artists or electronic artists I feel like that went to the sheer kind of velocity of this song reached. And I would definitely have to say on top of that, like the Millionaires really didn't get that crazy. Just you think of electronic artists, Zed, David Guetta, Millionaires, you know, folks like that, Flo Rida, some of these type folks, they just never reach that kind of velocity, and it's pretty good, I definitely would have to say. But then the third song, Where's My Wonderland, is not even a club song. It just feels like a real kind of dark and kind of haunting, like makeshift kind of song. So I was appreciative of that, just to kind of say that it felt like a makeshift rock song in a sense, just a real kind of blue collar, but gothic blue collar, if you could call it that, a gothic blue collar, just really dark and kind of gloomy and just kind of grim, just really kind of grim and such, just the way that it kind of was. It's just surprising that sort of stuff, an attempt to almost be like a single, but then doing it in like an alternative sense. So that's respectable, just because most of the time, you know, when you get like alternative singles, they usually have more pizzazz and that type of stuff, but it just kind of basked like in its dark ambience. And that was pretty cool that it did that. It's just like a dark wonderland the way it talked about it. But so yeah, I'm going to give this album a 10 out of 10. It's difficult to give it a social score just because this was basically just like a bonus EP, but I just would have to say really the quality is excellent. I would have liked maybe one or two more songs, just because Blood on the Dance Floor typically has tons of songs. So just how brief this project is, and how good they are on a roll, how well they are on a roll, and how normally well they execute this stuff, especially in their prime years. It's just kind of like, it's a disappointment that, I mean, it's not, I don't want to say it's a disappointment like I'm bitching about it, but just to kind of say it's like, hey, you know, I know you guys, I know Javon and Davi had like a couple extra songs just in their scrapped sessions that they could have thrown on there. But the point to it is, if I had to recommend how to get a hold of these songs, is I would just go ahead and get the CD edition of Anthem of the Outcast, because you're also getting an additional 9 songs plus these 3 gems. That this would really happen to be the thing, but it's good for what it is. Little bit compact, a little bit brief and to the point, but definitely the taste of what you got. Definitely the taste of what you got was pretty solid. So that's kind of the concept there. I just would have to say it's interesting. And this, like I said, the social score, I mean, it's popular. I think these are good enough songs to play around your friends, but I don't really rank it just because there's not really singles. It's just kind of more low-key in terms of finding it for yourself. But like in terms of the future, like what Blood on the Dance Floor has been up to, like the last album that came out from them was in 2019, so I think this group has effectively kind of closed the chapter or closed the book, but they do have quite an extensive catalog that I'm going to review as more time passes. So just understand that it's definitely top notch, but just understand it's short and sweet, and it's going to leave you wanting more, and that's just the main thing to know about it.